Good morning, welcome to my channel. I'm Dr. Paul Karitsis, and today I'll be continuing on with the esoteric symbols with the Venusian formative force expressed positively or actively through the planet Venus and negatively or passively through the metal copper. Thus far we have discerned that the metal gold and the sun represent the active masculine aesthetic polarity on the cosmological totem pole of pure consciousness, and alternatively the metal silver and the moon are exoteric markers for the passive feminine aesthetic polarity on the same cosmological domain. Planets and metals are active and passive manifestations of generative powers on a coloured spectrum of consciousness, which is itself preponderated by positive and negative elementary transformative schism induced by the initial rupture within the primordial power, which we said was the prima materia, or the base substance. This cosmic phenomenon is exemplified in the symbology of many cultures and traditions, particularly the Chinese yin-yang and the alchemical union of dry sulfur and moist mercury, which are also represented on this 18th century frontispiece on a German book. Here is sulfur, there is mercury, and salt's there as well, which is the binding force. Those three symbols I'll be giving an exposition on a bit later during this esoteric symbols tour. So whilst the two great lights circumnavigating the cupola of the heavens, the sun and the moon, as well as their associative metals in gold and silver, could be thought of as the eastern and western horizons of a cosmological domain, the other planets and metals, traditionally 5 in number, are merely hierarchical variations of incarnated light or pure creative receptivity. So on this side, which we have the positive manifestation of the cosmos, heated by sun or gold. On this side we have the negative or passive manifestation of the cosmos, heated by the moon and silver, and all the others are basically all the other metals and planets, which symbolize the same formative forces, are directly between them, or manifest between them. So unlike the two major polarities, these other formative forces are restricted in expression and impure by comparison. In the case of the Venusian force, expressed actively by the planet Venus and passively by the metal copper, the active solar force predominates to such an extent that it overrides all other elemental influences. According to 15th century alchemist Vasilius Valentinus, who was better known as Basil Valentine, the Venusian influence is heated by a copious amount of unsettled solar energy, like a bromeliad, yellowed by overexposure to sunlight. The quality is immortalized in the symbol for the formative force, which is fashioned from two other fundamental shapes, the circle and the cross. The first denotes ethereal solar power, and the second elemental differentiation of the prima materia into ethereal fire, air, water, and earth. So you can see all the elements represented on the two polarities, on the two poles over here. Seeing that the circle is arranged above the cross, we can safely assume that the elemental differentiations are not dissipated back into the agglomeration of the prima materia, or the base substance, but are instead transposed to a much more vigorous level. Knowledge of the metal probably goes back to about the 5th millennium BC. It appears that gold and lead might be the only two metals that were identified and adapted for practical use before copper. Its natural inclination to bind to other metals in the subterranean was not oversighted either. Soon after its discovery, artisans and craftsmen began to alloy it with tin and zinc to produce bronze and brass. In Egypt, use of the metal was quite multifarious. It was fashioned into mirrors, statues, vases, pendants, weapons, and a great many other ornaments. The Egyptians also employed it for therapeutic purposes, like the purification of water and the sterilization of wounds and burns. Verdigris, the green oxyacetate of copper, was used to soothe afflictions of the eyes and also as a pigment in artwork. In the case of the Greeks, we know that it was used widely for military purposes, for Homer reveals in the Iliad that Achilles' shield was an amalgamation of gold, silver, copper and tin. Between the 6th and the 3rd centuries BC, the Romans initiated a trend in which copper was rendered into the local currency. Both Julius Caesar and Octavian Augustus had their own coins minted in brass or an amalgamation of copper, lead and tin. Under Imperial Rome, the metal was known by the Latin es cyprium, a term which denotes its autochthonous state as an alloy and its concentrated existence on the Mediterranean Isle of Cyprus, which incidentally happens to be the abode of the love goddess Aphrodite. And I have a sample of copper over here to show you. So over here, of course, Cu being on the elementary table of elements, the chemical symbol for copper, cuprum. So kind of can't quite get the shine on it. There we go. So that's its indigenous color. So once it's exposed to oxygen, it undergoes verdigris and turns green, which is why the Statue of Liberty in New York, which is overlaid with copper, is now green, a very beautiful green as well. And that concludes today's lesson on copper, on the formative force of copper. I will see you next for a very interesting lesson on the formative force for mercury or quicksilver. I'll see you then.